welcome to Create Thumb-Stopping Social Content in Minutes. We are the Spark team. We'll do a little quick introduction here. As Verna said, you already know what we look like now, so here's what we look like a long time ago. My name is Veronica Belmont. I'm a product manager and evangelist on the Spark team, and I'm really happy to be here. It's my second Max, and yeah, Spark is awesome.
Hi everyone, hope everyone had a lovely lunch. My name is Lisa Bogosian. I'm a senior product manager on the Spark team.
And I'm Verna Bhargava, and I'm a growth design manager and experience design manager on the Spark team as well.
All right, enough about us. So we want to really be able to unleash your potential. This is some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, kind of in order. We're going to go through the responses. A lot of you responded to our survey that we sent out, so thank you very much for doing that. That really helped us kind of formulate the kind of discussion we wanted to have here today. And then we're going to talk about why this matters. Why are you even here? Why is it so important to have a social strategy? And why is it important to create the kinds of content we're going to be talking about? Of course, best practices. Many of you here at Max are designers. Some of the best practices for social media can be a little bit different from traditional design, so we're going to definitely highlight that so you can take those new skills out into the world. And then we're going to talk about focus. So once you've figured out the kinds of conversations you want to have, what kinds of communities, where are you going to have these conversations, you don't necessarily need to cast a super wide net. You can actually really narrow your focus in on specific kinds of communities or platforms that are going to be most receptive to the message for your product or service or company. Then finally, establishing that social brand, really making that a cohesive experience across multiple platforms. And then we're going to do a quick demo. We're going to show you how Spark works, if you're not already familiar with it. Real fast, how many of you here have used Spark before? Oh, right on. Okay, very cool. How many of you have not? Just so I can get a little... Well, it's actually like a little bit 60-40 more have not used Spark. And then finally, we're going to share with you some of our playbooks that we've developed that'll really help you to take those lessons out into the real world and continue learning and figuring out your path through your social media strategy moving forward. All right, so if you care to post during the session, these are the handles. These are all our handles. Post with the hashtag Adobe Spark as well. And we'll be talking a little bit in the future about how if you do post a social later in the program, you might be able to win a fun prize. Yes, we have prizes. So for those of you who did take our survey, these are some of the responses about who is actually handling social media content at your company. And this is pretty funny because we've done this survey a lot and we've gotten a really wide range of different types of people who are in charge of doing social media marketing. A lot of the time it gets kind of stuck on the person who is youngest, which for whatever reason people are like, oh, Jane, she's 22, she knows how to do the social medias. Yeah, she probably does, but that might not necessarily be her job. But in this audience in particular, or in the other sessions that we're having, these are the people who have said that they're working on social media for their organization, or their brand, or their company, and it really ranges from graphic designer to instructor, producer, intern, pretty normal, and even founder and CEO. Especially if you're a founder of a very small startup, you have a team of like 2 or 3, that responsibility is going to fall on you until you figure out how better to offload or continue managing that, delegating some of that. It doesn't necessarily always have to be one person on a team. And also, you had a lot of questions. These were some of the most pressing questions that we heard from the audience, like what strategy should I use when I have little time to devote to social media marketing? Can video even be easy? People keep hearing that video is like this really great tool for communicating their message or communicating their story with a large audience, but sometimes video can feel a little bit overwhelming. It feels like, oh, there's a lot to learn. Like, how do I even start figuring out how to tell my story that way? How important is frequency and regularity when posting to social media? These are some of the questions that we're definitely going to address during this session, and also we're happy to continue answering them after this session is even over. And so in terms of your biggest concerns, really strategy was the biggest one that you wanted to talk about. And that makes a ton of sense because you hear about how you need to have a social media strategy, but what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? Frequency? Does that mean what types of content I'm creating? We're going to get to that later in the program. And consistency, just being able to keep up, knowing what to post, how often to post, where to post, when to post. These are all questions that are really important, and having a really basic structure to figuring out how to answer them and address them is going to help you big time when it comes to keeping up that consistency over time. So out there in the audience today, how you're currently using social media marketing and for what. So 41% of you are using it for work, and the rest of you are using it for pizza. No. You're using it for freelancing or for consulting, starting a business. Some of you are aspiring influencers, or you have side hustles outside of your day-to-day job. So these are different kinds of lessons that you can take, not only for the work that you're doing in your office or organization, but also for things that you can do maybe a little bit differently to kind of build up your side hustle or other projects that you're working on outside of your main day job. And so why does this actually even matter? Social media marketing is different from traditional marketing. There are definitely some main differences. And you're going to see some things that you'd be like, oh, that sounds familiar, but it's a different kind of audience and a different kind of workflow. It's a lot more personal. You're building these real-time relationships with people in your audience that want to feel like they have a one-to-one connection with you and your brand. And that's not even if you're an influencer. That's like United, like the airline. Like they feel invested in having these one-on-one connections with users because they know at the end of the day, that's the kind of community they want to build up and have people actually going out into the world and evangelizing for them. It's also can be kind of hard to keep up with. The rules tend to be changing quite frequently. Are any of you familiar with the 20% rule for Facebook advertising? One, maybe two people. Okay, that just goes to prove how fast these rules change. That was a rule where if you had more than 20% of text on a Facebook ad, they would deprioritize it in the news feed. And that's like something you just kind of had to figure out, or that you had to hear from someone else, or maybe they had some kind of playbook, but it probably wasn't widely shared. But that was a big impact on people who are trying to advertise or get their name out about their business via Facebook. And these relationships, of course, sustained over time. You're building them, you're cultivating them, and it really requires like genuine content to feel authentic and successful. I used to do a drinking game for the word authenticity. Every time you're in a panel about social media marketing, if you hear the word authenticity, you take a drink and everyone's plastered by the end. This is a very early panel, so we won't play that game. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's okay. Jay Baer is a really brilliant person in this space, and he has so many quotes to choose from, but we actually interviewed him, and this is one of the quotes that he gave to us. It says that social media marketing requires a level of patience and a level of trust in your fellow man that a lot of professional marketers either don't have or cannot afford to have because their bosses need results right now. It's a relationship built one post at a time. So what can social media marketing do for your business? So really the first thing is it can solidify your brand across multiple platforms. And this is really important when you want to really get the name out about your business and build up that identity online, because some of your users might be on LinkedIn, some of your users might be on Facebook, and when they're switching between platforms, you want to have that moment of aha, where they recognize your brand and continue to engage with your story. So you really want to make sure you have that cohesive visual style that's going to kind of have that through line across multiple different platforms. You also really want to maximize the depth of your connection by focusing on each platform's strengths, and we're definitely going to talk about that a little bit later in this presentation, but each platform has different kinds of things that they're good at. And so knowing what those are and how to maximize them is going to enable you to tell the best kind of story possible. And then, of course, intimacy and familiarity. Building that authentic relationship with your customers. Take a little drink. No. It's really, this is one thing that I don't talk about too much, but it's your first line of defense when things go wrong. So if you feel comfortable with a brand, if you understand what their message is, and something goes haywire, you can trust on that that sense of knowing them, I guess, to kind of see that through. It's a little bit kind of hard to explain unless you actually see it in action, but there are brands that I give a couple of strikes to because I understand who they are as a brand, even though I'm not intimately familiar with the people that actually work there. And then really engaging with that dialogue and having those conversations with new and current users. And then being a thought leader. That's a big one in a lot of different kinds of industries, especially design, for example. Being able to be a resource for other users to come to, be known for the types of things that you're talking about, and being able to really curate content from your audience to help elevate your points and really kind of continue to build that community through shared knowledge. All right, and I will turn it over to Lisa now for social media marketing principles.
Great, thank you, Veronica. So the next couple slides, we're gonna walk through just basic principles that we all can follow that are super simple to wrap your head around. So the first one is find where your audience is and focus your attention there. So there's a lot of different social platforms out there. You don't have to use every single one the same way. So if you're getting great traction on Twitter, focus your energy on Twitter. If you're getting great results on LinkedIn, focus on LinkedIn. And each one is suited for different kinds of communication, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But this is a great example from United Airlines, which is, as Veronica mentioned, United has to be in the moment constantly because they're transporting people every single second of every day. So this is just a fun one from Hello Cape Town. And again, it's moving, it's engaging, and it's just simple and fun. And this one's a big one. Decide your goals and stick to them. So what are you trying to communicate? How are you looking for new customers or speaking to existing customers? What is your buyer persona and how do they use social? So this is even before you even think about what content, is really digging into what is your goal? What do you want people to feel or see or experience about your product or service? And this last one is consistency builds authenticity, drink, and trust. And so this is an example from a shoe company called Allbirds, and their shoe is based on being made of wool. So you'll see images of sheep, you'll see different shoe shots. They're really digging into the fact that this is who they are, and they want you to just have that familiarity about their brand. And this is another one that Veronica alluded to, which is engage from a place of dialogue. So social media is a two-way street. It's not a commercial that you're watching on TV. It's a great opportunity for you to engage with your customers in a very authentic way. And so this is an example from Travel and Leisure where they're using the features of Instagram to get a reaction and to get that interaction with their users. So below sea level, would you be down to float at 13,000 feet below sea level? Yes, please. Too salty. Use those because that's a great way of having that personal one-on-one interactions with users.
Have you ever sent a tweet or a message to a brand and not gotten a response and felt weirdly sad?
Don't be shy.
Right?
It happens.
You kind of feel sad. That moment when you do get recognized is oh, they heard me. You feel seen. And for social media, such a huge part of it is feeling seen, that brands can really go a long way in giving people that good feeling of being noticed and heard, which is so important in the social space.
And provide context and aspiration. And when we start talking about video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about context. But context is so critical in building that trust and that credibility with your users. So this is an example from Seattle Interact design conference, which happened a couple weeks ago, which is they're putting content that builds that credibility that they are a design leader. And so they're adding quotes and they're adding this beautiful branding to their feed. They're not always saying, sign up, register now, register now. They're giving you that opportunity to connect with them through their content. And this other example from Dyson Air, there's nothing, if anyone's from Dyson, apologies, but there's nothing that exciting necessarily about that technology, but they're weaving it into who they are. They care about the technology they're building because their customers can benefit from such neat, what is this one? Curling irons.
It's a really good curling iron, okay?
I trust it. Dyson knows their thing or two. And this one is just important for anything, whether it's for your business or for your own personal, is show versus tell. And so bake your brand into your content. So this, I'm picking on this org because we actually did do a session with them.
She's picking on an organization that saves dogs and tries to rehome them. I'm just setting that up. This is for everybody.
And so I picked on them because I wanted to help them. And so we did end up doing a session with them. But this is what their content looked like before we helped them, which was, they have all this information about Bogey, and they're trying to insert all this emotion around this dog, but this caption is very long. So how many of you have ever posted something and seen that more button on Instagram? Yeah, I think all of us. It cuts you off at 125 characters. That's not a lot of real estate for you to communicate something. So you don't have to, because you can bake it into your content, which we'll see in a minute. And the other thing is, this text, and we're all designers or we all appreciate design, this font is pretty simple. It doesn't communicate much, and it's pretty bland. And so it's not representative of your brand or your voice. And the third one is, we retain information better when it is visual. And so for someone to retain all this information, they're actually trying to get you to go to this event, is lost, and it's at the very end. So here's some examples of how some brands are baking their brand into their content. So you don't have to worry about the 125 characters.
Wait, was Bogey adopted?
Bogey was adopted. Thank you. Yeah, let's give it up for Bogey. This first example is, Margaret Cho is going on tour, and she's just inserting the tour dates into her content rather than in the caption. She has control over the fonts. She has control over what information and how it looks in the layout. This next one is an example of yes, we're all dog fans here. Again, breaking news, today's the day. You couldn't get that emotion if it was baked into that caption. So don't bake it there, bake it into the content itself. And this last example from Modern Citizen, a clothing company, they could have easily put this information into the caption, but you would lose that visual appeal to it, and also you just lose all that content because people can't retain that information. But when it's nicely paced this way, you're retaining it a little bit better, and it also kind of flows into their brand itself.
All right, so let's start building a strategy. This is where you get to start thinking about how your brand is actually going to start doing this for yourself. So the first thing is you need to set your goals. And this sounds like a really obvious thing, but social media marketing can often be so overwhelming. You're seeing ideas all over the place. You're, collecting inspiration from all over the internet. There's like a new trend every 3 days. You're like, where did they and how did they do that one thing? And so it can be really easy to get distracted. And so one of the things that we wanted to kind of reveal is that you guys have a lot of the same goals. When we asked you in the survey before you came, what were some of your goals? These were the top 3. And so everything we're going to kind of focus on today is how you can achieve these 3 goals and how you can start with one, preferably, and weave in the others as you start to build velocity and as you start to build more presence. So these are the 3 goals that we saw. And in the first one, inform, introduce, and engage, this one's really about how do you showcase your product to really generate interest and excitement, but then how do you keep that excitement going, right? You might get a new follower, but are they looking at your content a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a few months from now, really? And then the second one, which is about finding and growing customer relationships, notice that we don't say find followers, because social media is a relationship. And it's not just about finding someone to look at you for a second, right? The real thing here is that you want to build a relationship that has depth. And so this is really about how you can start gaining some loyalty through the content that you're making and putting out there. And then that third one is about being a thought leader. A lot of you, I think the word thought leader, does that resonate with people a little bit? What about the word influencer? We heard a lot of people love the word influencer. They're not that different in some ways. A thought leader and influencer, you're basically putting yourself out there, sharing your perspectives, and trying to connect with others who have a like-minded perspective. So think about them in a similar way sometimes, especially when it comes to social media. And it's really about growing that brand presence, and that can be an individual or a company. You might be wanting to command a certain kind of knowledge in your industry, and social media is a great place to build a relationship with followers through that kind of relationship. So building a strategy. it's really just about storytelling, and storytelling is also one of those words that we should all be drinking for right now too, because it comes up so much. But there are some ways you can kind of make a framework work for you and break it down into pieces that feel really manageable. So this is what we love to call a meanings pyramid.
Pyramid.
And Lisa and Veronica are laughing because I love this pyramid. But in this pyramid, what we're thinking about is, how do I start to take my content and break it down into a framework where I know why I'm posting what I'm posting every day? So not all content is created equal, right? We've got 3 layers here. So at the bottom, we've got functional content and functional experiences. And these are the things I just need. On the second level, we've got what I'm feeling right now. So that's my momentary, like in the moment feelings about something. And then up at the top, we've got meaningful experiences and meaningful content. And this is really the stuff that hits me at a core level that really matters to me. And what we've seen with a lot of companies, and I'm sure you can think of some examples in your own life, like, you're going to be more loyal to a company that engages with you at this meaningful level, right? But there's a place for all 3 of these types of content. And this is a really great way to look at your social media feed. In what ways can you inspire functional, emotional, and meaningful reactions and relationships with your followers and your users? And so let's think of an example. So take a cup of coffee, right? Cup of coffee. Why do people drink? Why do you drink? Well, tea. Okay. Why do you drink tea?
So I live.
So you live.
So I can be awake.
Yeah.
So I can be awake. Yeah. Okay.
So on a functional level, you need to stay awake. But then from an emotional standpoint, let's say you were not at max right now, tired after giving an amazing keynote speech, by the way. Let's say that you are back at home in San Francisco and it's a Sunday morning and you're gonna go get a cup of tea from your favorite spot down the street, and you walk in, and what do you feel in that moment on Sunday morning?
It's like comforting. It's like, yeah, part of my ritual.
Yeah, so ritual, it's comforting, it's familiar. Maybe it feels a little more calm because it's not a work day.
I didn't plan this. I'm really worried I'm going to give the wrong answers.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. And then on a meaningful level, though, let's say that you have, don't worry. Let's say that you have one tea shop on one corner and you've got another tea shop on the other corner, which is very common in San Francisco. And, you always go to one, and all of a sudden the other one is doing some pretty amazing things, and your current one raises their prices, but Veronica still keeps going. And we're wondering, why does she still keep going to that tea shop when there's something across the way that seems like it would be an equal product? Well, maybe that tea shop that raised its prices donates all the money to the different groups of people in different countries that are developing those tea leaves and are growing those tea leaves and harvesting them. And Veronica, turns out, did the Peace Corps 10 years ago. You didn't, but... Fair assessment. She did the Peace Corps, and she actually was in Costa Rica, and she saw that process go down. And for her, something like community and harmony is this meaningful experience that at her core level, it's important to her. And that's going to be different for her than it is for Lisa. And so there's something that keeps her going back. And so that's the framework that you want.
Lisa's a bad person.
Lisa's working with puppies. It's fine.
Okay.
She's working with puppies. She's a good person too. And so she keeps going back, even though the prices are higher. So there are 15 kind of foundational, meaningful experiences. And the question we have for you guys is, when you're coming up with your storytelling framework, it's about you being able to identify which of these are most important to your customers or your relationships or your company, depending on what you want to do. There are probably a lot of versions of this, and you can modify them as you want, but it's a great place to start. And if you want to read more about this, small plug, we did not invent this. It does come from a framework in a book called Making Meaning, and there's a little link down here. You'll get the slide deck later, and you can look it up. But it's a really great place to start to organize for yourself what is meaningful, emotional, and functional. So we're going to show you an example in action. So we were looking at REI's social feeds, and we kind of broke it down to sort of see the DNA and how they might do it. So what we noticed was, when we looked at all of their social feeds, on a meaningful level, we noticed a lot of wonder and accomplishment. Is everyone here familiar with REI? The company REI? Okay. So a lot of wonder, a lot of accomplishment. It's all about being outdoors, being amazed by what this planet Earth has to offer, and also being able to, as a human, be a part of that. On an emotional level, though, we noticed a lot of their in-the-moment content is really going after community. So you'll see some examples of that in a minute. And then on a functional level, they're not really leveraging any of these big meanings, obviously, but what they are doing is showcasing the products themselves in the store. So when you look at this right here, you can see that some of the functional stuff, they're using stories to answer customer questions, to showcase new products. They try to do an even mix between beginner, intermediate, and advanced products. And then they also show you how to do something, like how to make this dish when you're camping, that it doesn't have to just be about like Kind bars. On an emotional level, they are really going for where you might be right now. So on the left, this was a video that they posted on Instagram and Facebook. And what was really cool is that it flipped between day in and day out. And it was really playing at the fact that on the left side, you're at work, you're always on your phone, you're on your device, you're on your laptop. And the right side image didn't change the whole time. It was just these two people talking at the end of a dock. And they posted it brilliantly on like a Friday afternoon at 3. And so they're really getting at that like emotional in the moment, like where you might be, the kind of content that might get to you. Same thing with the examples on the right. They are really good about showcasing the community efforts that they already do at relevant times when things are happening in the news. And so it's another way that they're using social media timing and those emotional experiences. And then finally, on a meaningful level, if you go to their Instagram, you will not see one product shot on there. It is all just inspiring, beautiful outdoor content, really getting at that sense of wonder and that sense of accomplishment. In a couple cases, they have some stuff on the right where they're overlaying quotes or overlaying, experiences in text. And so Spark's a great way to do some of that kind of stuff. I'm sure they have an in-house design team, but we'll see about that. So the big question here is, what is meaningful to your customer? And that's a great place for you to start with this framework. Draw that pyramid out for yourself and see where you might land with that. And then you can take it a level further and start matching that up with your meaning or your goal that you have in mind. And those 3 goals that we showed you earlier, this is where you can kind of start to see this play. So this is where you're able to say, all right, well, for example, say you're a healthcare services company. And for you, the most meaningful experience for your customers is maybe creating a sense of trust and security. And so for you, finding and growing customer relationships is like the goal that would really resonate. So that's where you can kind of pair, okay, I'm gonna think about trust and security and the goal of finding and growing customer relationships as the thing I'm gonna do from a really meaningful standpoint. From an emotional standpoint, I'm gonna be more of a thought leader, and then you might decide that for functional content, it's gonna be about informing.
I think this is really good for companies or organizations that don't necessarily have a physical product or something that they're trying to sell, because we often get a lot of questions of like, oh, well, we're a nonprofit, or I think the health organization's a really good one. I had someone at another workshop that I did that works for Social Security, and they wanted to be able to get that information out there. So for this, being able to understand the emotion, the sentiment that you're trying to encourage your customers to feel is like a really great way of figuring out what content to show them if you don't have an actual physical product or website to put on Instagram.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. We heard that from a lot of you, actually. Yeah. For this one, this is just like another way to organize these. And in this example, we were thinking about, imagine you're a university alumni group. I think there's a couple of you in here that gave us that idea, actually. And how would that work for you? And so maybe for you, at the moment, fostering donations and participation is really key. It's really important. And, what you're mostly trying to do is get informational content out there, but that just informing people that they can send money is probably not going to work so well, right? And so again, you can go back to those meaningful experiences. So in your university, it might have been that, college was a time of like enlightenment and adventure and community, and playing on, making your content play on those experiences as a connection point to also getting participation might be a really good way of doing that. And so you may say, hey, I'm gonna make my informative and my engagement content really the one that's meaningful and use these other things in other ways. And then with the last one, being a thought leader up at the front, maybe you're trying to lead a movement of some sort, or you're trying to lead a community in becoming aware about something. This is a really great place. And that can be, and I don't mean just as a nonprofit or as a political movement, but you might be, for example, an agency that does a lot of creative work, and you have expertise in a particular vertical. This is a great way that you can actually be a thought leader and find, some of those meaningful experiences depending on what you're working with and who you're trying to communicate to use your thought leadership. So now you have a storytelling strategy, and let's refine some brand voice. And, Veronica talked about earlier how social media marketing is different than traditional marketing. It is more unique. And so there's a few things that you probably want to consider beyond your normal branding and what you've probably been doing for a lot of your other stuff. And some of these might be really familiar to you. Maybe you're doing some of these things already, but hopefully there's a few extra things in here that maybe you haven't thought of yet. So image styling, we know that image styling is super important, but of course, beyond just filters adding consistency, it's also for like your own content, it's also really great for using user-generated content. And we'll talk a little bit later about why user-generated content is important in creating your own relationship, but it's a great way to stay on brand, even when you have content coming from so many different sources. But also on the right, you might notice that there's a key color in both of these accounts with Urban Outfitters and Urban Decay. Coincidence that they were both named that way. But they're basically threading bits of color, throughout this composition. And a lot of folks think about like the individual post as the main thing to concentrate on, but what you can see here is that the feed itself is also this place where you need to be curating and thinking about how a brand weaves through an experience for a user. The other thing is platform differentiation, and this is something Lisa brought up earlier too, but all content, again, is not equal. If you blast out all of your content everywhere, it doesn't really create for the most relationship-building conversation. It's like those people who use online dating and send the same message to like 300 people. They're just trying to catch someone.
That doesn't work?
I'm sorry. So in a similar vein, you kind of have to customize your message to your viewer. Use your platforms, to your advantage. So Nike does a really good job at this, actually. They have like certain types of content that they post across different platforms. So on the top, you see a LinkedIn post, and it's really about like recruitment. They put a lot of thought leadership stuff out there for new grads. On the left, their Instagram feed is really, really heavy on highlighting awesome athletes and their accomplishments. Again, a lot of inspirational and meaningful content goes there. And then on the right, you can see, they kind of bring in their own employees and they showcase their employees a lot on like Facebook and some of their other platforms as well. So they're thinking about what kind of content do we want to put on each platform to create a specific type of dialogue. Another one is make your content breathe. This is really the biggest thing here. Like give copy a chance to actually breathe. Now, I know for the graphic designers in here, you probably have a client that wants to do everything in their power to make your designs not breathe. They want to add 1,000 lines of text. They want to, make everything pop, so nothing pops in the end. Also, they say the word pop. So one of the things you want to make sure you can do is tell them, inform them, educate them that, with social content, less is a lot more. So these are just, a few examples of content that have been made that have been created in a way that brings your eye naturally to certain parts of it and allows you to consume information really quickly.
That visual hierarchy.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty common design term to remember, like up and to the left, like that's just the way your eye travels, especially on posts like this. And so Delta does a really good job of bringing your eye to the content that they actually want you to pay attention to, while also making the image the hero as well.
Also, just on a really basic level, when you're flipping through your phone, depending on what hand you're using, you're probably touching the bottom part of the image as you're scrolling up or down. So in general, keeping copy like way up towards the top is really helpful, or right in the middle is really helpful. And then also we have choose a temperature on here. A temperature is kind of like, before you create that thing and just post it, like what are you trying to evoke? What's the feeling you're trying to evoke? And make sure some of those filters and colors in that copy like helps bring that to life. I've seen so many people say, well, I just need to make a post that says we're having a sale. And so they really focus on putting that 50% off on the sale, but they're not thinking about, well, does this convey the energy of a sale? Like, this image is so sad, or like this font is really like diminutive, So really think about what's the temperature and the feeling you're trying to create. And then content rules. And so think about themes. This is something you've probably seen before, and it kind of goes back to that Nike example as well. But in your business, there's probably naturally going to be 3 or 4 types of content themes. Maybe it's a quote that you put up from certain clients that you've worked with, like customer testimonials. Or maybe you've got a certain layout you want to use every time you're trying to solicit participation or an action from the viewer. So look at the types of content themes that you could probably put together and then decide on what the visual rules are going to be for those themes. So in this example with Refinery 29, you can kind of see that anytime they have a quote or some sort of inspirational quote, they tend to keep it really simple on a solid background. When they're featuring or kind of honoring a celebrity that they admire, like the 2 on the right with Sandra Oh, they always kind of have a similar treatment with the text and the image. And then they feature a lot of artists, and those artists are all user-generated content that is sent to them. And so they always, when you go double-click into these posts, they always tag the artist. They always kind of make that the first thing. So it really kind of elevates the person that they're borrowing from. And then for social media trends, try them. Don't be afraid to try them. I mean, if there was ever a time to have content be almost less designed too, now is the time. And one of the things that you can do is take over the feed. Their Instagram takeovers are great. If you know somebody in your industry or you have a friend or a partner that you work with, like in your company, it's a great time to say like, hey, we want to, sort of put your perspective up on our Instagram. Can you, post for us for like a week or for a couple of days? Another one is behind the scenes live content is becoming really popular. For a while, I think sound was hit or miss because people didn't want to watch a lot of sound-based content from work or something, but it's coming back, and we're seeing a lot more audio and sound coming back into the platforms. And then another one too is serial content. Think about your content as part of a series. The post doesn't just end with that thing that day, but how can you take some sort of theme or topic and break it up into pieces of content that you can basically put out over the course of maybe a week or 2 weeks and let that out in little bits. And then we've also got brand voice. So brand voice is that core personality, right? There's your look and there's your feel, but there's also the voice. So a good exercise, and you may have already done this with some branding firm that came into your company, is, if your brand was a real person, what would they look like? What would they sound like? But I'll prompt you to take it like dial in one level deeper. What would they sound like more casually on social, not in a meeting? What does that brand sound like if it was your best friend who just sent you a meme? How would they write that? And so think about copywriting and content writing as conversational. How would that brand talk? And, we like to sort of define it as voice, is really what you might say, but the tone is how you're going to say it. Some of these examples here are with the one on the bottom is Cleo. This one's kind of funny. Did you want to talk about
Oh, no, I was just saying, I think it's so important to have brand voice, because that way, as I was saying earlier, multiple people or multiple different actors within a company can actually contribute to the social media of a brand while still making it feel consistent. And that's really important. And not all brands need to sound the same either. I think we have a lot of brands on Twitter, especially right now, that are being pretty like jokey and sarcastic. And that's fine if that's the way you want to go. But that's not necessarily, think about what your company really stands for and like the kind of like trust and relatability that you want to have, and make sure your voice reflects that. So even though Wendy's is really good at being funny and sarcastic and kind of biting and mean, that's not necessarily going to play for your doctor clinic or whatever. So just be aware of who you are and what message you're trying to tell, and then your voice should be a reflection of that.
For sure. No, that's super, super important. Yeah, the some of these examples we pulled, these ones are all funny because we were having some fun with this. But, looking at Netflix, their little tag, under it's not really over until someone changes the password. I mean, they were playing off of a joke that was actually happening in popular culture, and they leaned into that and they used that as part of their voice. And, it gives personality. It kind of lets you know that they're in on the joke, and it's a fun way of creating that dialogue and relationship. Are any of you familiar with Clio? There's been some chatter about them lately.
So funny.
It's hilarious. They're like a financial budgeting app. So
Allegedly, it uses AI to let you know how much money you have to spend on certain things. I kind of think it might actually be people because the comments are too funny. So you're like, Cleo, do I have enough money to go buy a few rounds this weekend? And they're like, well, we can't stop you. You're a drunk or whatever. It's
really, that's what they
that kind
text
of
back
stuff.
to you.
It's really kind of mean, but also funny. But it makes you think about your finances. And their social, their Instagram account is really amusing.
And they're a newer company, and I feel like their social is actually what's really, really blowing up attention to their product. And they totally make fun of themselves and all of the things that are going on in the news. So millennials walking around like they rent the place. Avocado toast, naturally. And, with Casper up here too, just kind of making a joke about, even though they sell, these beautiful they sell beautiful mattresses and they have all these beautiful photos that are evocative of these gorgeous spaces. They're really making a joke about they know their customers well, makes bed once and checks resolution off list. What was also nice about this was really topical. They posted it right after the new year, January 15th. So again, it's relevant, it's contextual, it's in the moment.
And it's user gen.
Yeah. So basically, the moral of the story is if you can identify that brand voice and think about some of those elements and then combine that with that storytelling strategy and that framework, you basically have yourself a content strategy. You have the start to it. Yeah. And now Lisa's going to blow your mind with some video.
Yay, my favorite topic, video. Okay, so how many of you currently use video as part of your social media strategy? Okay, some hands. Who wants to incorporate more video into their social media strategy? More hands. Great. All right. We're going to do that. So in that survey, we asked folks, what is that one word that comes to mind when it comes to video? And it broke my heart and also made me excited because there's a lot of folks who are intimidated by this medium, and the fun thing is you don't need to be. And so we're going to do a group therapy session together. Everyone's going to repeat this statement with me. You don't need fancy equipment or a lot of time to create an engaging video. Now, everyone else say it, speak it back, because you're going to walk out of this room thinking differently about video, and more importantly, how to create video. So let's do it together. 1, 2, 3. You don't need fancy equipment or a lot of time to create an engaging video. Great. Now that you said it,
It really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's real short and simple and sweet. And so this hint is one of the things we're going to talk a lot about, which is you don't always need video content to make a video, and we're going to walk through some examples of those. I want to share this video, and I'm not going to say anything. I just want to play it, and then I'm going to ask you how you feel. Oops, nope, not that.
In no particular order, my fears are hurting others, letting people down, hurting my needs, that I'll never find love, that I will get cancer, that those I love will decide I'm not worth their love. I feel like you know so much about me now. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, me talking to you right now is my mom's worst nightmare.
How'd that make you feel? Did you think it was a video? Yeah, it played, right? It had sound. It didn't have moving content necessarily, but it had different text appearing. That's how you can start to think about video. It's not always I'm putting a camera like we're getting filmed right now. That's one flavor of video, but this works so well because it's building that suspense. It hooks you not only because she's speaking so raw and so authentically, buzzword, but it's stitching together this anticipation. We're going to break down what anticipation is because that's your ultimate goal when communicating with video. It might be doing the thing again. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about how you don't need to always use video content. Your goal is to just make it move. Think about when things appear in a feed or in any kind of social feed. The things that move typically catch your eye because it's constantly changing, and our brains are wired to think about, ooh, that looks different, that looks different. Every second of video is changing, and that's why it's so naturally engaging form of medium. So this first example is about me. Simple, there's nothing fancy about it, but it keeps you kind of anticipating about me what? What do you want to know? This next example is from this yogurt company in, so this next one is the global climate strike. Again, it's just revealing content one letter at a time. It's nothing fancy, but it's still making you pause to see what is it actually going to reveal. It's like Wheel of Fortune, right? Like Vanna White's revealing certain letters, and you're sitting there watching, thinking, what word is it? What's going to happen? And so this next example, so all of those were just text-based. There was no moving content. And this next example is something which is using only photo content. I'm going to make this bigger. So short and sweet. I mean, they could have easily baked all that content into that caption, and you know that's my trigger, but they didn't. They spaced it out with little bits of information on each segment of the video. Okay, so we're going to talk about there's many forms of video, and it's not an or, it's an and. So I'm going to talk about two kinds of video, and this first one I'm going to call microform video because that's really technical and that's fun to say. No, we've all experienced it. It's a lot of story content on Instagram or Snapchat, and these are really, I call them postcards. It's not sharing everything about your vacation. It might be a single moment or a single bit of information, and that's what you really want to share in that kind of format because people are cruising through that content. So this first example is just a simple vacation adventure, Los Angeles to New York. Nothing fancy about this, but it gets to that point, and it also looks kind of good. And then the second example is a online sample sale, 40% off, swipe up. So again, they're not overbearing with a lot of text or a lot of information to retain, but you're still using motion to communicate suspense and engagement. Okay, so this next form of video is what we're going to call short form. So again, there's other kinds of information, but this is really that 30 seconds to 2-minute block of information that you want to communicate. So this first example is a yogurt. I'm going to get this full screen, but don't risk it. I don't want to risk it. And a scoop. Yeah. And then the brand. So that was 4 shots. That's it. That wasn't a lot of production. That was, I mean, this is wonders when you just hold it against something. That's stable now. It's not, that probably didn't take a long time to make. There was one slight camera zoom that someone probably pinched in Zoom. But that was very engaging, but it still wasn't overbearing where it would take you hours and hours to make. And then, so how many higher ed folks are in the room, EDU folks? Okay, good. So this is an example. Tulane University used Spark Video to create this great informational video about the university, and there we go. mean, who doesn't want to go to Tulane right now? I kind of want to go.
Ooh, air conditioning. It's hard to clean up.
So this is an example of content that would probably work better on YouTube. So we didn't talk a lot about YouTube, but because it is longer, is better suited for that platform. Like we said in the beginning, different kinds of content works better on different platforms, and this is ripe for YouTube. You get the gist. Now everyone wants to go to Tulane.
Great. Really informed.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you do. And the pause button is just sneaky. Just sneaky, you guys. It's not a big just... All right, we're going to move on. Okay, so... we have full screen.
Okay.
Oops. All right, before we get to burgers. Okay, so video is about anticipation and creating suspense. And so all the examples we saw had micro changes. And so that can be changes in text, whether that be font, color, or just the amount of text that you have in a piece of content, or it could be the visuals itself. So in that last Tulane example, there was photo, and then there was that plain background with some stats about the university itself. So breaking the eye so it's not constantly looking at the same thing. You noticed in that yogurt video of the ice cream, it wasn't one single shot that lasted 30 seconds. Someone's gonna get very tired of seeing the same shot, so you wanna break it up. And then motion, so a lot using animation and having content come in builds that suspense of what's gonna happen next. That's critical in building engaging content. And then patterns, so what do I mean by patterns is again, breaking the eye so it's not constantly thinking and anticipating what's next. So this could be difference of adding sound effects, it could be difference in music, it could just be inserting funny moments when you weren't expecting it. And then audio, which is again, tapping into different sound effects, music, and just using audio itself in your video content. So a lot of people hate the sound of their voice, and you don't need to because you don't sound like that to everyone else. And so using audio to be the soundtrack itself, you don't always need music. You can use the natural pitter-patter of, dog paws walking by.
We actually call those tippy taps.
Tippy taps, exactly.
Burgers. So, you think your industry might not be ready for this? You think you might not be able to use these kinds of lessons? Well, you're wrong. Even burgers can have an active social life. So this is an example of Shake Shack. Any Shake Shack fans in the audience? Yeah. So this is, we just found this example really interesting because it was essentially being able to showcase this brand in many different ways. Like it's not just a burger, it has fun. And that's something that we like to see. But you can see on their social, it's active, it's having some fun with itself, it has a really interesting visual story to tell that's beyond just people eating burgers. And so this is a way that you can take something that's a little bit unusual and reframe it into being a really compelling social story. A toothbrush also can have a very interesting story. This is Quip, and they have a really great visual style, and they really have some fun with themselves too. So this is an example too of their social stories on Instagram that can really help to shed some light about things, not only about the toothbrush, but about the experience of becoming a Quip customer. So you can really, they created some brand stickers that other people can take and use in their own stories to kind of build that viral experience happening throughout their own customer base.
Also, they have puns. They released floss, and I never thought it would be so interesting.
Oh, man. All right. And then for B2B companies, really finding that angle that makes you feel more real. We're going to zoom through because I know we're getting pretty close on time. But GE uses a special hashtag, WCW, and makes it theirs. So they're really combining that technical information that they have that might appeal to other businesses with emotional appeal that's going to get them fans and followers who are also going to be consumers. For B2B companies, social can really be your playground. You can have some fun with it. Like MailChimp, for example, they have this great character that they integrate within all of their different social posts. MailChimp, it's MailChimp, if you're a podcast listener. This is like two people are like, yeah, I get that joke, cool. And so let's do a real quick demo. How much time do we have left?
You have like 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay, great.
Got this. We can do it.
All right, perfect. So we're going to walk you through Spark. So this is your home screen. So Spark is available in multiple formats. We have Spark Post, Spark Page, and Spark Video, and they're actually all different apps that are available on iOS. Spark Post is also available on Android, but all of that comes together in this, your organizer. This is where all of your projects come together, and you can start new projects from scratch, or you can create from templates. One of the main things I do want to show you, though, is managing your brand. And this is really how you generate that consistency across different platforms and across various different social posts. So what I've done here is we've actually imported a logo. And this is just to get pretty nitty-gritty on the details, this is a transparent PNG file that I've imported. You want it to be a pretty decent size, not huge, not like, 10,000 pixels, but something that's a little bit larger than just like 400 by 400. And transparent background is great because you're going to be able to overlay it on all different sorts of content. We also create a word mark for you automatically. So that's a really great thing to have on video content that's not going to be too visually distracting from the content that you're creating. But if you have multiple different kinds of your logo, if you have like just a big, an A or an S or whatever it is that it makes it more like vertical rather than horizontal, you can bring those in and choose and swap them out depending on the content you're creating. We also pull in your colors automatically from your logo. If you want to add more, it's already picked out the logos based on the hex code that's available in your PNG file. So I can choose this one and actually make that my primary if I want to, just by right-clicking on it, actually just by clicking on it and making that primary. And that's going to, we'll do it live. That's going to replace that color across all of my branded templates and content. So if you ever go through a rebrand, for example, or if you're making changes to your brand colors, you can just do that here, and it's going to repopulate all of your content, so you don't have to go back project by project and refix that. So that's really important to have for your design velocity, for being able to make content quickly and on the go. And then finally, while this is updating fonts, you can choose from the fonts that we have picked out for you. We make some suggestions on font pairings, or if you use your own thing that you've downloaded from the internet or somewhere else, you can actually import that font file and populate your content that way. So that means that you can have that consistency across multiple different platforms. So right off the bat, we're going to show some branded business templates that we pick out for you just to get you started, but you can start from a number of different ways. And my personal favorite way is actually starting with premium templates. So I'm going to search for social graphic here. And right away, up comes all of the different templates that our team has created that you can start building from. And if you see that little yellow highlight right there, that means it's a premium template. So if you're a subscriber to Creative Cloud, if you have the photography plan, or if you're subscribing to Spark on an individual basis, you have access to premium, which gives you premium fonts. It gives you access to special templates that we've made, resize. We're adding all sorts of different ways that you can kind of up-level your content by signing up. So let's hop into this graphic, for example. Let's pick a good one. Perfect, okay. So say you're a blog and you want to be able to put out a story on social, through Instagram stories that's going to bring traffic into your site. And so you're like, all right, great, I'm going to pick this specific template. It has kind of the look and feel I'm going for, but you want to make some certain changes. So one change that you probably want to make right off the bat is going into Brandify. So we're going to go into Design. And now right away you see that these colors do not fit within my brand. Just with one click of a button, it's going to add all of my branded content. It's going to change the fonts. It's going to add my logo. If I want this logo to be bigger, I can just scale it that way. It's just a PNG file, so it's going to look good pretty much no matter how big I make it at this point. And of course, your branded colors. If you want to play around with that a little bit more, you can shuffle, and it's going to give you some additional options. But of course, you can always go in and adjust manually to get it the way you want it to look. And so that's just a real quick way that you can kind of start having fun with some different visual styles without necessarily having that background in design. Because we've kind of done that heavy lifting for you. We know what the best practices are. We know what typically works in this space. We want you to just be able to come in and add your name, add your logo, and feel like you have something that you can share with the community that you're going to feel really proud about. But resize is another one that's great for that design velocity. So depending on how many elements, this can work in different ways. So say, for example, I'm starting with this aspect ratio that's maybe really good for Instagram stories, but I want something that's going to work for let's pick a good one. Let's do a YouTube thumbnail. We'll see how this works. Perfect. Okay, so with one click, it's reformatted that image to be the perfect aspect ratio for a YouTube video thumbnail. So if I'm creating for a lot of different kinds of platforms, say you're creating content for LinkedIn and for Facebook and for Twitter and for Pinterest and for Instagram stories and for TikTok, what have you. Like, we have all these baked into the product right away, so you don't have to go around searching the web for what aspect ratio is going to be perfect. Yes, I would recommend Spark to a friend. Thank you for asking. Excellent. We have a lot more different design themes and things that you can play around with to test out to get the best look and feel that's right for you. But that's just a real quick look at how, by using templates, premium or otherwise, and Brandify, you have access to all these different creative elements at the drop of a hat. And all of this syncs to your mobile devices too. So if you're at an event like Max and you want to be on your mobile device versus being on your laptop, these assets are going to sync automatically across those using Cloud Sync. So you never have to worry about not having access to all of your creative elements or templates, and Lisa's going to talk a little bit more about that for the video portion. Did I cover all the things I needed to cover? Okay, cool. I'll let you take it from here, Lisa.
Great. So remember our friend Video? We're all still friends with Video, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so I captured some content along the way, and so this is Spark Video. Again, same, accessible through spark.adobe.com, and I've already started my project. I had all these clips on my phone, and so I started the project just after the keynote, and I started building my project. So I just want to show you. I'm not going to demo you because you're just going to show you what this is. So this is the interface for Spark Video, and as you can see, there's no menus, there's no words like keyframes, or there's no timeline. This is video creation, it's not necessarily video editing. So it's really assembling your content and ideas that you have and just bridging them together. So I created this project. I'll press play just so you can see real quick. This was us brainstorming last week during Halloween, where we dressed up and we were going through building our agenda for today. So just wanted to share a little bit of that content. These are going through the results that all you lovely people gave us information, feedback on.
Very convenient that your costume wasn't there, by the way. That was nice.
Convenient. And then I started to build my project of getting ready to leave yesterday. And so, all right, so I'm not done, but I wanted to show you what else you can do. So we have these things called themes, and so we have a handful of themes that are already baked with animation and all that motion, so you don't have to worry about, how short or how fast and how slow things can be. It's easily applied to your design, and you can shuffle through colors as well. All right, and so then, so these are all our different themes, and then if we go into resize, I love this. You can go from widescreen to square, and again, widescreen is great for YouTube content because it has that nice widescreen 16:9 player, and square is really good for Instagram content. And then we also have all these pre-built songs that are available for you to use, so you don't have to think about, what song should I go? We have different, styles. We have fun little ukulele, and so it's really there for you, so you don't have to worry about bringing in additional assets. While this is firing up, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the other kind of assets you can add to your projects. And so here you can add video content, you can add text, photo, and the neat thing about photo is we have available free photos. So if I don't have the picture of that dog, I can find one here easily. And then we also have
Internet connection problems at a conference. That's crazy.
who'd have thunk?
That never happens.
We also, remember we were talking about breaking the eye, so it's not breaking the patterns that the eye is seeing, so you're not always showing the same thing or just inundating people with a ton of text. We've integrated with the Noun Project, so if folks aren't familiar with the Noun Project, it's this great community where designers create icons to this platform, and we've integrated with them. So if you want an icon of, say, a dog, there you go. So you can easily choose, your favorite icon, and you can add text. And so again, you don't always have to have everything to create a video. We have assets for you to easily assemble your video. And then I'm gonna continue my project on my phone because I have more of my clips there. But I just wanted to kind of cruise through some of these themes.
That's working, yeah. And you can have branded themes as well. So at the top, you have 3 different options for branded themes, and so those are also going to implement your branded fonts or your colors, logo, etc.
So while we're on the topic of mobile, so Spark has 3 different apps. We have Spark Post, Spark Video, and Spark Page. And so we're going to show, I'm going to demo, thank you. I'm going to demo really quickly Spark Post on iOS. And so all the projects that we've just created are available on my phone through my account. And so this is the landing page for Spark Post. And so how many of you have currently Spark Post installed on your phone? Okay, good number of hands. We'll get more hands, hopefully by the end of this session. So I'm going to just show, these are templates. So just as Veronica had showed all the various templates on web, we also have them on mobile. So if you're on the go and you want to pick up a template that's easily discoverable, I'm going to find the post that Veronica had started, and I'm going to continue editing it. So I'm going to first make it size for Instagram stories. So I'm just going to go here, and then it automatically shifts. And then I'm going to apply my favorite thing, which is animation. And so these are all our various text animation styles. We recently revamped them earlier this year. And so what we're doing here is we're just have fun with them, play around with them, and it's a great way to keep that eye engaged and also to make whatever your message is pop, as designers love to hear. So I'm going to pick, I like typewriter. And again, you don't have to worry about keyframes. You don't have to worry about timing of things. We already bake some logic in that, in the style, so that way there you don't have to think about that stuff, because that's actually not the fun stuff you want to do. You just want to create and post your content. One of my favorite things that recently is hot off the press on iOS is the ability to add video content to your Spark posts. So I'm going to go in here, and I've already created a folder called Max 2019, and this was filmed just a little bit ago. I'm going to do done. You can trim, you can mute it if you want, but I know I have some things to say. So I'm going to just delete these quickly and play this. Oh, man. You can't hear me, but I'm saying good stuff. Spark 2019 at max. All right. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to add some animation because, again, I want that eye engaged. There we go. And so I click done, and now I can easily share it to my Instagram story feed.
Awesome. So we only have like 5 minutes left at this point, so we're going to real fast go through the playbooks. And let me get back over to those.
Made a present for you guys.
Yes.
So, you're gonna go back home, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, great, but where do I start? And how do I actually get going with this? And then how do I keep it going for the next few weeks and get into a rhythm? One of the biggest questions that we had from a lot of you was, well, how do I start to create a rhythm? I don't have time, we don't have resources sometimes. And how do I even just start to think about it? Because it's sometimes the last thing on my list to do. So what we did was we put together basically 3 playbooks, and they're based around those goals that we talked about earlier in the session. And so each of the playbooks are designed to help you boost your impact in that area for 15 days. You can actually rinse and repeat the playbooks over and over again as long as you want. You can pick whatever theme you want with them. And each of them has a content calendar. And so just to remind you, those were the 3 goals. And so with those 3 goals, you have 3 playbooks. This is going to be a PDF downloadable. We have a page set up where you can, get these for yourself and save them to your computer. And so just a quick walkthrough of what's inside of them. So in this one, in Inform, and Introduce, and Engage, you're going to have a breakdown of what this playbook is ideal for, what types of content you might be trying to, or what types of outcomes you might be trying to achieve, how this content can help support that. And then also principles and best practices for this playbook. What are some things to keep in mind whenever you're creating content for it? And then finally, you get this magical 15-day calendar. And this calendar calendar is going to walk through literally the things you need to do on that day and exactly what to post. And you make it yours with your own, subjects and themes and content. But it basically allows you to post in, 15 to 30 days, depending on whether you want to post every day or every other day or whatever. There are prompts in here for how to use Spark Post, how to come up with those themes, what to post if you're going to make a video. A lot of the stuff, for example, in this first playbook is about product spotlights, team spotlights. When you open up the customer, find and grow customer relationships one, you're going to see a lot about what types of content to post that will deepen that relationship and that loyalty. And then in the thought leader one, it's really going to kind of weave together how you can use your long form and your short form content so that you start to create, some presence in your industry and presence with your community. These are for you, and we really are excited to hear about them as well. This is the link to find them. You will all get a copy of the deck, so don't worry. But yes, this is the link to find them, and on that page you'll see all 3 of them, and you can download them and use them however you'd like. Something to keep in mind is also that we are doing a little gift thing. So if you do make something today from one of the playbooks, please hashtag it as a Spark Playbook post, and we are definitely paying attention, and we have prizes for some of you. And then last but not least, we're building this for you, and we really, really want to know what's working. So if you do follow one of the playbooks, we would love to be able to see and track your progress, and also hear from you, like what happened after 15 days, what happened after 30 days, did it work? Did certain content types work better for you? We would love to keep updating these playbooks to make them relevant and capture all the trends that are happening. So please share your progress with us. We are very friendly people, and we like to answer Slack messages and text messages and emails when we're not making things. But also, the other thing we wanted to introduce you to is we are really interested in, especially for those of you who are like power users out there and are really creating a lot of media content. If you're interested, request an invitation to our social media marketer circle, and we can tell you a little bit more about how we would like to work with you to create something better. And that's also on that playbook page. You can find a little link to request for that. Yeah, absolutely.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's on your computer.
Yep.
And last but not least, visit our booth in the pavilion. We have a really fun activation where you can be a rock star and apply some really awesome filters to what and props to your.
Come make your
face
album art in Spark. It's gonna
Yeah.
be awesome.
We've got some really cool swag. It's better than the others.
It's better than all the others.
And the very, very last thing is, do not forget to fill out your survey. If you go into your Max app, you can give us some feedback on the session. And I believe they have really big prizes for survey filler outers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
This is great.
Yeah.